The Great Hall of the Zarin Academy of Diplomacy was brighter than anything Eli Carter had ever seen. Thousands of floating crystal lights filled the air like silent stars, glowing softly in hues of gold and blue. The sound of 100 alien languages echoed off the shining marble floor. Every voice, every movement reminded Eli that he didn't belong here. He was the only human in the hall, small, out of place, and painfully aware of it. He clutched his datapad close to his chest and looked around for an empty seat. Rows upon rows of elegant, curved chairs stretched across the room, each carved from glowing stone and marked with strange alien symbols. Most were already taken by creatures of every shape and size: tall insectoid diplomats, scaled warriors, feathered scholars, and luminous beings of energy. Eli swallowed hard. He had dreamed of this day, the first human ever to attend the academy, a place where future leaders and heirs from across the galaxy came to learn peace and diplomacy. Back on Earth, people had called him brave. Here, surrounded by species that had flown between stars for centuries, he felt more like a lost child. He spotted one empty seat near the back. As he moved toward it, a tall, silver-skinned alien slid into it without even looking at him. Eli hesitated, forcing a polite smile. "Oh, sorry, I thought..." The alien didn't even respond. It simply turned away, its long head shimmering with light. Eli sighed and stepped aside. He tried another row, no luck. Each time he thought he'd found a place, someone else claimed it first. No one even made eye contact. He could feel their stares, though, quiet, judging. To them, he was just a human, a primitive race barely new to spaceflight. He mumbled under his breath, "Guess I'll just stand." But before he could take another step, something unexpected happened. A hand, smooth, warm, and delicate, and closed around his wrist. Eli froze. He turned, and his breath caught in his throat. Standing beside him was Princess Kayla of the Lurathi Empire, the heir to one of the most powerful dynasties in the galaxy. She was radiant. Her skin shimmered like silver under moonlight, and faint bioluminescent patterns glowed softly across her face and arms. Her eyes, deep violet, bright as amethysts, met his with calm curiosity. "Sit here," she said, her voice soft but firm. Eli blinked, stunned. He glanced around. The seat next to her was empty, the only one left in her entire royal section. He hesitated. I don't think that's allowed." "I mean, I said," she interrupted gently. "Sit here." Her tone wasn't commanding, but there was something in it, warmth, a kind of kindness he hadn't felt since leaving home. Before he could argue, she gave a small tug on his wrist and guided him to the seat beside her. The moment he sat down, the room fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward them. Whispers rippled through the hall like wind through grass. "The human sits with the princess?" someone muttered. "Unbelievable," whispered another. Eli felt his face burn. He looked at Kayla, expecting her to pull her hand away, to act like it was a mistake. But she didn't. She kept her calm, regal posture, as if nothing at all was strange about sitting beside a human. When the lecture began, Kayla leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "You looked lost." No one should stand alone in a hall meant for unity. Eli didn't know what to say. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring at her silver hands resting gracefully on her lap. For the first time since he arrived, he didn't feel invisible. He didn't feel small. And as the lesson went on and the stares slowly faded, Eli realized something quietly powerful. Sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one act of kindness. He looked down at his wrist where she had touched him. The warmth still lingered there, steady and real. That simple moment, a seat offered, a hand that didn't let go, and was how everything began. After that first day, the hallways of the Zarin Academy of Diplomacy never felt the same to Eli. Everywhere he went, he could feel alien eyes on him, curious, cautious, sometimes even skeptical. Whispers followed him like a shadow. "The human sits with Princess Kayla. Does she truly trust him? Or is this some cruel joke?" At first, Eli tried to ignore it, but the stares made his chest tight, and the whispers made him feel smaller than ever. Humans were still young in the galaxy, barely known, barely understood. He was their first step into a world that had centuries of culture, power, and history, and everyone could see it in his awkward movements, the way he shuffled when he walked, the nervous grip on his datapad. Yet, Kayla treated him as though none of that mattered. She smiled at him in the hallways, sometimes gave a subtle nod, and occasionally leaned over during lectures to share a small note, carefully written in human-readable symbols. "You're thinking too small," her note said. "Remember, humans reach for the stars with hearts bigger than their size." Eli didn't understand at first. How could she be so confident in him when he barely felt confident himself? But gradually he began to notice something extraordinary. She didn't just sit with him because she liked him. She saw him, not as a human novelty, not as someone to pity, but as a mind, curious, cautious, and willing to try. One quiet afternoon, the two of them were sitting on a terrace overlooking the academy gardens. The glowing crystal flowers swayed in a gentle breeze, and alien birds with rainbow feathers fluttered among the floating fountains. Kyla leaned back against the rail, her violet eyes fixed on the horizon, and asked softly, "Why do you seem so unsure of yourself, Eli?" Eli hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, that he didn't belong, that he was afraid of failing, that he sometimes wished Earth had never sent him here. Instead, he just shrugged. "I don't know. Everything here. It's so big, so alien. I feel invisible." Kayla tilted her head. "Invisible?" she repeated. "I don't see that at all. I see someone willing to stand where others would hide. Someone who notices details that giants of the galaxy overlook. You humans have a way of seeing the world that others can't." Her words made something warm spread through him. For the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider. He felt recognized. Over the next days, their friendship grew quietly but strongly. She taught him how to read the subtle signs of alien body language, how to speak in the ceremonial tones that demanded respect, and how to maintain calm even when powerful beings glared or whispered behind their hands. Eli, in return, shared something Kayla hadn't expected: human stories of courage, humor, and stubbornness. He told her how people back on Earth celebrated small victories, how even failure could be meaningful, and how trust was often stronger than the strongest armor. The more he shared, the more she laughed. The more she taught, the more he listened. They were learning from each other, shaping their thoughts together, understanding a universe neither had truly known alone. One evening, as they walked back from the lecture halls under a sky where artificial stars twinkled alongside real ones, Eli stopped and asked, "Kayla, why did you choose me that first day? Why not one of your advisors or another student?" She smiled softly, her silver skin glowing in the starlight. "Because you looked lost," she said simply. "And sometimes those who feel out of place see the world most clearly. You humans have a gift I want to understand." Eli felt his chest tighten. He had never imagined that a princess, a royal of a powerful alien empire, could value him so genuinely. No one had ever made him feel this way, seen, accepted, and important, and in that moment, as the lights of the academy reflected in her violet eyes, Eli realized that their friendship wasn't just convenient or accidental. It was rare, precious, a bridge between worlds. It was fragile. Yes, but it was strong enough to make him believe that maybe, just maybe, he belonged here after all. And somewhere deep in his chest, a small spark of courage began to grow, the courage that would change his life and the galaxy itself. The announcement came like a thunderclap across the academy, the Grand Council debate. Every student from every corner of the galaxy would participate, representing their species in a test of diplomacy, courage, and intelligence. The hall buzzed with excitement. Aliens whispered about strategies, forming alliances, and preparing their speeches. Eli felt a tight knot in his stomach. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched his datapad. Humans were still considered new and fragile, inexperienced in intergalactic politics, weak in comparison to centuries-old empires and dynasties. And here he was, expected to stand among them and speak, to represent his whole species. "Eli." Kayla's calm voice broke through his panic. She was standing beside him, her silver robes glowing softly under the morning light. "Are you thinking of stepping back?" I don't know," he admitted. "I'm just a human. They'll laugh at me, or worse, ignore me completely." Kayla smiled, a hint of mischief in her violet eyes. "Then make them listen. Humans may be small, but your voice carries weight if you speak with truth. Speak with heart, not just words." Her words struck something deep inside him. He nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try." For days, the two of them worked tirelessly. Kayla coached him on intergalactic etiquette, how to bow and gesture without offense, how to phrase arguments in ways that made even the most stubborn alien counselors pause and think. Eli, in turn, shared something Kayla had not expected, the human way of connecting through stories and emotions. He showed her that power was not always in titles or weapons, but in courage, honesty, and the willingness to stand up for what is right. The night before the debate, Eli sat alone in his room, staring at the holographic notes floating around him. Doubts gnawed at him. Could a human really earn respect here? Could he hold the attention of beings who had walked among stars for centuries? A soft knock interrupted him. Kayla stepped inside, carrying a small glowing crystal. "You're ready," she said simply. "Remember, it's not about impressing them. It's about being true to yourself and showing them the strength of your people." Eli nodded. Her confidence filled him with something he hadn't felt before: hope. The next morning, the hall was packed. Thousands of eyes, scales, feathers, tentacles, and glowing orbs turned toward him as he walked to the podium. His legs shook slightly, but Kayla's warm smile met him halfway across the hall, and his courage steadied. He took a deep breath, feeling the history of his species and the weight of his responsibility pressing down. And then he spoke, not about weapons, technology, or politics. He spoke about humanity itself, small, fragile, but unyielding. About hope that could ignite even in the darkest corners. About courage born from compassion. About the power of friendship and trust. He told stories of ordinary humans overcoming impossible odds, of people reaching for the stars not to conquer but to connect. The hall was silent. Not a whisper, not a breath. The alien counselors, some centuries old, stared at him with wide eyes. They had never heard a human speak like this. They had never been forced to see the strength that lay in his species' hearts. When he finished, Eli expected laughter, mockery, or polite applause. Instead, a single hand clapped, then another and another until the entire hall was clapping. And in the middle of it all, Kayla's eyes shone brighter than any star, her applause unwavering, her smile proud. For the first time, Eli realized that humans were not weak, not insignificant, not a novelty to be ignored. In a hall full of powerful alien species, a single human voice, one brave enough to speak with truth and heart, could echo across the galaxy. And in that echo, he found himself. Because sometimes being human didn't mean being small. It meant having the courage to stand even when the whole universe doubted you. And Eli Carter, standing beside Princess Kayla's approving gaze, was ready to rise. After the Grand Council debate, Eli felt a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. He had stood before centuries of alien history, and for the first time humans had been noticed, truly noticed. Yet the celebration was short-lived. Whispers began again, quieter this time, but sharper, colder. The princess sits with the human too often. Has she lost her senses? He is unworthy of her company. Even Kayla's advisors, those closest to her, frowned at her choice. They questioned her judgment behind closed doors. Eli noticed the sideways glances and the polite but frosty greetings. The hallways that had once felt alive now felt heavy. He felt the weight of suspicion pressing on his shoulders like an invisible chain. One morning, a palace envoy arrived. Kayla's father, Emperor Thaler, summoned her immediately. His reputation was legendary, strict, unyielding, and loyal to the traditions of the Lurathi Empire. Kayla didn't speak of the summons, but Eli could read the tension in her movements. Her usual calm was now laced with worry. When the day came for her to leave, she found Eli in the quiet courtyard. The twin suns of the alien world bathed everything in golden light, but it did little to warm the cold fear in his chest. "Kyla," he began, uncertain. "Will they punish you, or—" He didn't finish, not wanting to say aloud the fear of losing her trust. She knelt slightly, placing her hands over his. "Whatever happens, you must not doubt yourself," she said softly. "Your courage, your words, they made a difference. Even if the council cannot see it yet, others will." Eli shook his head. "I'm worried about you. You might be punished, or worse. They might never forgive this. Sitting with me, learning from me." Kayla smiled faintly, her silver skin glowing in the sunlight. "You humans, always worrying for others. I am fine, I can face them. But I want you to remember this, trust yourself as I trust you." He swallowed hard, unsure of what to say. She reached up and brushed a strand of glowing hair from his forehead. "When I return," she whispered, "I want you by my side, not as a student, not as a guest, but as my equal. Will you wait for me?" Eli felt something he had never felt before. A mix of pride, fear, and hope swirling together. I will," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Days turned into weeks, and Kayla did not return. The whispers grew louder, darker. Rumors of rebellion swirled through the academy like storm clouds. Some claimed she had defied her father's orders, that she had abandoned her duty, that she had been corrupted by the human influence. Eli's place in the academy became fragile. Students avoided him. Teachers were polite, but their eyes were guarded. Even the friends he had begun to make seemed uncertain, afraid of the shadows of gossip. He tried to focus on his studies, on learning the ways of diplomacy, but every empty chair and sideways glance reminded him of the distance growing between him and Kayla. Yet, even in that silence and isolation, he held on to her words, the memory of her hand on his wrist, the warmth of her trust, and the simplicity of her command. "Sit here," became a shield against the fear and doubt pressing in. Late one evening, alone in his dormitory, he whispered to the empty room, "I will wait. I don't know what comes next, but I will wait." Somewhere in the galaxy, Eli realized the smallest acts could become the strongest bonds, and even in the face of shadow and doubt, he would not let fear control him, because he had felt her trust, and in that trust, he found a courage he didn't know existed. Days turned into a tense blur for Eli. Kayla had not returned, and the academy seemed colder than ever. The whispers had become accusations. Some claimed he had seduced the princess with human cunning. Others insisted he had poisoned her mind with dangerous ideas. No one asked him for his side of the story. No one cared about the truth. Then, without warning, the palace guards arrived. They were tall, armored, and silent as shadows, their glowing visors scanning every student. Eli's heart thumped violently as they approached him. He was seized, his arms lifted and restrained by alien strength far beyond his own. "You are under arrest," one intoned in a mechanical voice, "for corrupting Princess Kayla and endangering the stability of the Larathi Empire." Eli felt the walls close in. His mind raced. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was, the human, powerless against centuries of alien law. His thoughts flew to Kayla. Where was she? Would she even know? Would she defend him? Hours became a long, lonely nightmare. The cell was cold, silent except for the faint hum of energy running through the walls. Eli sat on the metal bench, knees pulled to his chest, replaying every memory of Kayla's kindness. He whispered to himself, "I won't fail her. I won't let them win." Then one evening, a door hissed open. Light spilled into the cell and Eli froze. His heart leapt, and it was her. Princess Kayla. Her silver armor gleamed in the dim light. Her violet eyes were filled with determination, even fury. "You dare imprison him?" she shouted at the guards. "He is under my protection." The soldiers hesitated. None dared to defy her. Not a single one moved. Kayla strode into the cell, her presence filling the space like a rising sun. She bent down and touched his shoulder. "I told you to wait for me," she said softly, almost tenderly. "And you did. You trusted me when the whole empire was against you." Tears sprang to Eli's eyes. Relief, fear, and gratitude collided. I didn't know if you would come," he whispered. Kayla shook her head, her silver hair catching the faint light. "I will always come for those who have courage," she said, "especially for those who believe in what is right, even when the world doubts them." With a graceful motion, she broke the restraints that held him. The chains fell to the ground with a heavy clatter, echoing through the empty cell. Eli flexed his wrists, feeling freedom again, but more importantly, feeling the strength of trust and hers in him, and his in her as they walked out together. Side by side, the weight of the world seemed lighter. For the first time, Eli understood the true meaning of loyalty. It was not obedience. It was not submission. It was the courage to stand by someone even when danger threatened, when the odds were stacked impossibly high, when fear whispered that it was easier to run. The guards parted silently, allowing them through. Whispers echoed in the corridors, but Eli did not hear them. He only heard Kayla's steady footsteps beside him and the quiet heartbeat of his own courage. Outside, the stars shimmered across the alien night sky. Eli looked up, taking a deep breath. He realized something he had never truly understood before. Being human did not mean being small or weak. It meant having the capacity to hope, to endure, and to stand firm in the face of impossible odds. Kayla glanced at him, her violet eyes bright and soft. "We fight together," she said simply. "Not because we must, but because we can. And because we believe in what is right." Eli nodded, feeling a surge of strength unlike anything he had felt before. Whatever trials awaited them, whatever shadows or whispers tried to pull them apart, he knew one truth: loyalty, courage, and trust were stronger than fear, authority, or centuries of doubt. And at that moment, in the quiet of the night, walking with the princess who had seized his wrist and told him to sit, Eli Carter felt like a human ready to stand against the galaxy itself. His council chambers were alive with tension, more alive than Eli had ever experienced. The grand room shimmered with energy shields and floating crystal lights, filled with the most powerful beings from countless worlds. Leaders, generals, and advisors crowded every space, their eyes sharp, voices low, judging. And at the center, standing tall and unwavering, was Princess Kayla. Behind her, Eli stepped forward, bruised from his ordeal but stronger than ever. The hall went silent as the Emperor's voice thundered. "You would risk the Empire's peace for this human?" Emperor Thalor's words cut through the air like a blade. "This creature is unworthy of your attention." Kayla lifted her chin, her violet eyes unwavering. "He is not unworthy," she said, her voice calm but full of fire. "He has shown courage, wisdom, and truth, qualities that even centuries of my advisors cannot always display. I trust him because he has earned it," the council murmured. Some voices whispered doubts, others anger. But Kayla's presence silenced the majority. Her aura of calm authority demanded attention. Eli took a deep breath. This was not the moment to hide. He stepped closer to the podium and spoke, each word measured but full of conviction. "Your Majesty," he said, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "I am not here to take your throne. I am here to stand beside the princess, as a friend, as a human willing to serve truth and justice. I do not ask for power or honor. I only ask that my intentions be seen for what they are, honest and unwavering." Silence fell. Even the strongest voices among the council paused. Never had a human spoken with such clarity, with such courage in the very heart of alien power. Kayla nodded slightly, encouraging him. "He speaks truth," she said simply. "Do not mistake humanity's youth for weakness. We do not conquer through fear. We endure through heart and will. That is the strength Eli brings, the strength of humans, of trust, of loyalty." The Emperor's gaze softened, though just slightly. He had always valued courage above all else, even in his children. Eli could see it flicker there, the first sign of respect, the first crack in centuries of rigid tradition. Finally, Thalor spoke, his voice quieter now. "Then prove your worth. Earn the right to stand beside my daughter and in peace or in peril." Kayla smiled. Relieved, but her eyes stayed fixed on Eli. He returned her gaze, heart swelling with pride, knowing they had faced the council together. This was not victory through force or threat, but through courage, loyalty, and truth. The murmurs of doubt slowly faded as whispers of respect began to replace them. Aliens from distant worlds looked at the human differently now, not as a curiosity, but as someone capable of inspiring strength and hope. Later, as the council adjourned, Kayla and Eli walked side by side through the grand corridors. He felt a new sense of purpose, a clarity that came from standing not just for himself, but for something bigger than any one species. "You were amazing," Kayla said softly, her hand brushing against his. "Not because of what you said, but because of who you are. Humans, you do things differently, and that difference, it changes people." Eli felt his chest tighten. "I only spoke what I believed," he admitted. "But I wouldn't have done it without you." Kayla smiled, her violet eyes glowing with warmth. "And I wouldn't have believed it possible without you. Together we are stronger. Not because we are the same, but because we trust each other, even when the whole galaxy doubts us." Eli realized something profound. Being human did not mean standing alone. It meant standing with others, showing courage when fear demanded silence, and letting compassion guide strength. And at that moment, walking beside the princess who had seized his wrist months ago, He understood that humans could not only survive in the galaxy, they could inspire it, because sometimes the heart of a human was enough to change centuries of tradition. One word, one act, one truth at a time. Years passed, but the memory of that first day at the academy never left Eli. He remembered the way the hall had seemed impossibly vast, the glow of the crystal lights and the warmth of a hand that had reached for his wrist. He remembered the princess who had told him to sit, who had trusted him when the entire galaxy doubted him. Now he walked the corridors of the academy with confidence. Humans and aliens studied together, learned together, and shared laughter that filled the halls with light. It was a new world built slowly, patiently, with courage and trust as its foundation, and at the center of it all, Eli often found Kayla, standing tall, radiant, a symbol of unity across species. Together, they had faced the council, whispers of rebellion, and the weight of centuries of tradition. They had stood side by side, human and princess, teacher and student, friend and equal, and the galaxy had taken notice. Every ceremony, every council meeting, every gathering in the Hall of Diplomacy, their presence together was undeniable. Some whispered still, but now the whispers carried respect, awe, and even hope. Aliens of every kind, once skeptical of humans, now looked to Eli as a symbol of what one human could achieve with courage and conviction. One evening, as twin suns set behind the floating spires of the academy, Eli walked into the great hall. New students were arriving, hesitant, unsure of where to sit. Their eyes scanned the room, some afraid, some lost. And then, as if on instinct, Kayla extended her hand and smiled. "Sit here," she said, her voice warm, soft, but carrying the weight of kindness and authority. The students' eyes widened. Some hesitated, others rushed forward. But the message was clear. No one should stand alone. No one should feel invisible. Eli stood beside her, watching the new students find their seats, watching them gain courage from a simple act of trust. And in that moment, he understood the power of what had started as a single choice. A princess reaching for a human's wrist, a human daring to accept the hand offered. Life was not easy. There were still challenges, still whispers and doubts, still moments when the galaxy seemed too vast for a single person to make a difference. But together, they had built something stronger than fear, a bridge between worlds, a network of trust, and a lesson that courage could inspire change. Kayla turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting suns. "You've grown," she said softly, pride in her voice. Eli smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known before. "No," he said, shaking his head. "We've grown. Together." The hall was silent but full of life. Students of all species, learning side by side, sharing stories, dreams, and laughter. And for the first time, Eli realized that being human didn't mean being small or weak. It meant having the courage to stand, the heart to trust, and the wisdom to sit when someone said, "Sit here." He looked down at the seat beside Kayla, the place that had once seemed impossible for him to occupy. He had earned it through courage, through loyalty, through hope. And now he knew that the simple act of sitting beside her, just being there, carried the power to change hearts, open minds, and build a better galaxy. And so, in the center of the Great Hall, Eli Carter sat beside Princess Kayla, a human among stars, a witness to the power of trust, courage, and friendship. Around them, the galaxy watched, learned, and began to believe, because sometimes the smallest gestures, a hand extended, a seat offered, a voice brave enough to speak, could change everything. And in that moment, Eli knew this was where he belonged, the end,